Good afternoon. How are you today? Well, this is what I look like in daylight. If you saw my walk and talk last night, I did it in the dark, and my new phone apparently doesn't have an infrared channel. So that's that. It's a little hot. It's in the 90s again. It's very still, and you can hear, I guess, the cicadas in the background. But you can see we got wonderful blue sky over here, a few clouds. They say it's not going to rain, so it's terrific. So let's talk about environmental tragedies. In the actually, they don't call it the super, they call it the Sugar Bowl, is where they have these giant sequoias in Sierra Nevada. And the fires have been devastating to the acreage of these trees that go back to Roman times. That's how amazing these trees are. And still there are people that, instead of trying to find ways to preserve and protect what's left in the acreage, some want to have more fires, and want to cut down the trees. So I don't think it needs any more elaboration than to point out the fact that we have people who are so stupid to the value of conservation, and the notion of usufructus is something that Jefferson talked about, which is the legal concept that we come into this world, and in this world we have a responsibility and a need to use the...
I could have got you. There's no crosswalk there.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, I know. Country living. Take care. So that usufructus is the notion that we use the environment while we live. But our responsibility is when we use this fruit that we have to restore it to the next generation and maintain it so they receive it as we had it. And that's not what's happening. Well, it's not happening around the world. And the higher you go up through the corporate ladder, and the greater the funds, and the more significant the profits, and the more that we have to secure our shareholders or owners, the less we're concerned about the environment. And in fact, Manchin, who is enjoying victory laps for finally having succumbed to reality and to good judgment, or coerced to do that, I've been at meetings with him in West Virginia on the subject of the water and the air, and I'm sure his position would be the same about forestry or anything else. And it is, the topic sentence is, oh, I'm for the environment, I'm for preserving clean water, I'm for preserving clean air, I want to obey usufructus and be good with trees and so forth. But then there's always an exception, which engulfs the general proposition of being a conservationist, and it is, if it's not too expensive. So in other words, they are prepared to burden us with the failure of the environment if they have to pay for it, so that we bear the burden, in some cases of illness, in other cases the loss of conservation resources. So that's one thought I have today. Another is, there's a judge in Cleveland, is that right? He's in Ohio, and he has had a trial in which he's been trying CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart. And the theory of the trial is that there are so many people in 3 blue-collar counties who are using and or have died from opioid use that he thinks those who are issuing prescriptions in those 3 entities should pay $650 million to those 3 counties for what they've suffered. Now let's roll this back a little bit. We all know that prescriptions are written by doctors, number one. We presume that the doctors are healers, not dealers, and they are for the most part. In my experience of representing doctors who were sued or focused or targeted for giving prescriptions of pain medication were giving pain medication that was necessary. And so when they write a script, it's presented to a pharmacy, and the pharmacy then issues what the doctor prescribed. The pharmacist is not in a position to second guess the doctor. Yet that's what this case is about. They're claiming pharmacists should second guess the doctor writing the prescription, and because they didn't second guess and didn't cancel some of these drugs, that, well, let's make them now pay the counties where these people died. And there's no cause and effect directly between, say, an individual overage prescription to Joe, who, by the way, is a blue-collar worker, and he takes the pain medication, sometimes because he can't afford not to work, and he can't afford to go to hospital for the operation. He may not have insurance coverage. Anybody hear this? The Affordable Care Act. And he takes this medication so that he can work. He has phantom pain from a limb that was cut off accidentally while he was working. Oh yeah, sure. There are people who are users who medicate themselves unnecessarily and inappropriately. But that prescription had to be issued by a doctor. And before we second guess the doctor, we should examine what the doctor did. And there's none of that in that case. And I hope they do appeal it, because it strikes me as wrong. We have the government telling women what they can do with their bodies and what is appropriate health care. And we have people telling others what they can do with their pain. And we have to keep in mind that the baby boom is a diverse cross-section of all kinds of people, including those who are advanced ages, working through injuries and other things like that. Now, there are segments of our society, for example, hospitalization. There are pain medications. I've had a refresher course in that because of Holly's time after her double lung transplant. There are cancer patients across the country who are receiving pain medications while they're also receiving things to fight the cancer. And to have the government or even a court with, a law school degree opine on what is medically right and necessary, what is healing and not dealing, that's a big mistake. Our society keeps dumbing itself down, and individuals pay the price. And when people can't get the medication and they have chronic pain, which means it's not a day or two because you hit your shoulder against a tree or something. It's because you have a pain that just won't go away and doesn't go away your whole life, and these people contemplate suicide. And the pain medication, in a legitimate case, helps a person to get through that. And frankly, if the pain is so bad that someone takes pain medication to die, I think as a matter of law, that should be appropriate. And, there should be ways to set that up. America is such a hypocritical place. I mean, we have this sanctification of hedonism, yet when a person needs something legitimately, we say, no, you can't do that. So that's upsetting. So what good news do we have? Well, we have McConnell telling us that the Senate's not a sure thing, and that's good, and we see crazy things happening in Pennsylvania and Georgia and some other places to the detriment of the Republican candidate. And so there is a chance that we will combat the notion that the midterm elections for an incumbent president may not go against the incumbent president. In fact, we may strengthen our holdings in the Senate, so we have a kind of control that doesn't depend on two in our caucus, Sinema and Manchin, doing what might be loyal to a Democratic caucus and help us do the kinds of things that we need to do that we're not presently doing. And then there's an interesting thing even at the state level. Governor Hogan, who is outgoing as governor because he's term limited and may want to run for president, and has been critical of Trump, was critical of Cox, who is the Trump-supported Republican who wants to be governor. And Hogan has called him, he's called him mentally unstable. So that's pretty good. Where are we? Well, on a day-to-day basis, we get battered back and forth between good news and good action and terrible news and terrible action. We see people who are adults acting like 10-year-olds. We see people hurt others in so many dimensions that it questions whether these people ever had a chance at maturity, or if they started better and became worse because they just didn't give a damn anymore. That's the challenge to America, to find our root cause, which I believe is a standard of civilization that treats our own the best that it can and equally and consistent with a law and a constitution, and that at every turn we're not concerned about violence to get things done because we've agreed what the basic laws are, that we are responsive to the common will. And when I say common, I mean a consensus of some sort. Majority is good in most cases, but we also have to have rights, individual rights that are respected no matter what the majority thinks. And Roe v. Wade is one example of that. And guns is another. And of course, that people who would threaten violence and that we would treat it as such a danger that we would not do the things that we should in terms of prosecution or condemnation. These are all part of a sack of values that we're not paying attention to. So, here I am in my cathedral of trees, and I am visible, and it's nice visiting with you, and I will again soon. Bye-bye.